Hey guys, Super Retrocade here. So, the video I'd like to do today is I got a new item in the mail. This is the GC Loader by Dan Kuntz, or Citrus 3000 PSI. It's an optical drive emulator for the GameCube, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to boot games off of an SD card. It supports SD cards up to 1 terabyte in size, and it also supports audio streaming games, which other solutions like the Wasp and the Wikifusion and stuff haven't supported. So I thought that it might be interesting for you guys to watch, a mere mortal install one of these, because it's not supposed to be a very difficult thing to install. So right now what I have here is I have a GameCube with a Wasp Custom in it, and I have the SP2, which is a memory card reader for the serial port. And I'm just going to open it up by doing the 4 screws on the bottom. This the GC Loader, it was $80 off of his web store, which is actually a really good price. In the past, like the Wasp and the Wasp Custom and stuff, they've typically gone for anywhere from $150 to $500. So $80 is a very good deal for a modern optical drive emulator. So it looks like 3 of the screws came out. I'm just going to set those there because I know that they're the only game bit ones. And then when I do this, I like to pop it open. I don't have the original drive in there anymore, so it doesn't really matter. But okay, so now I have a Wasp Custom in here right now, so I'm going to take that out. And one of the things with the Wasp was it only supported 64 gigabytes was the maximum size for the SD card, where this one, the GC Loader, will do up to 1 terabyte. Another thing about the Wasp Custom and the Wasp period is it doesn't support audio streaming titles like 1080 snowboarding, and I don't know what other ones are, but there's a few of them. So I'm continuing to just tear the system down. And I've already done the battery replacement on here. And I've replaced the fan with a new fan. Oh, and I'm gonna have to go get a screwdriver. Be right back. So now I have my screwdriver. So I'm gonna do 2 screws to get the power assembly out of here, and I'm gonna disconnect this cable because this cable runs from a circuit board underneath. So I'm gonna disconnect this one, and then I'm gonna do these 2 screws to get this out of here. And I've taken the GameCube apart many times, so this is pretty standard fare for me. And what we're actually trying to get to is we're trying to get to the underside of this connector, because that's where we're going to solder on our quick solder. I'm not sure what you'd call it. Quick solder board, or I'm not sure what you call this, but that's where we're going to end up soldering that to, is the underside of this. And I also think that we may have to cut out a little bit of the aluminum housing here in order to get that ribbon cable routed up properly. So at this point, now that I'm taking out these screws, I'm going to put this in an orientation where I'm going to be putting the same screws back, because this system's in pretty good shape. Like, I bought a brand new one, and then I did a motherboard swap and a power swap to get it to be USA, and a version with the digital video and audio out, or video out. You need a separate cable for the audio, unless you're using GC-HDMI, but I'm not sure exactly how that works, because when you use the HDMI adapters on the digital port, they get audio and video. But when you use like the official component cables, you still have to use the regular AV cable in order to get audio. So I'm not really sure how that works. It must be there, but the component cables didn't tap into it. And I think right over here is where we're gonna have to cut something, but I'll wait until we get there. So I'm just removing all these screws around this housing. See, and I was thinking I wouldn't have to tear it down that far, but I think I'm gonna have to tear this thing down pretty far to get to where I need to. I'm gonna turn my iron on at this point, just to let it heat up. I've got it set for 550 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a good temperature from my experience for doing this kind of work. I'm using a Hakko 88 soldering gun, or soldering station. Allows me to do variable temperature, which is very nice. So it looks like I'm still gonna have to get to the underside of this board, which kind of sucks. So in order to do that, I have to undo all these screws on the heatsink. There's 6 of them, and I don't want to lose them, because these screws on the heatsink, I'm pretty certain, are holding this in to this aluminum piece underneath. And you know, if I really cared, I could go look it up in a video, but I've disassembled these enough times to have a pretty good idea, and I think I have to do this. I kind of want to do this without watching his video, because Dan Kuntz, the guy who made this optical drive emulator, he has an official video on YouTube of how to install it, and I have already watched it, but I didn't like. It was like when it was first announced that it came out, so I haven't watched it recently. So I kind of want to just dive into this and see how it goes, to kind of give you guys an idea of whether this is very difficult or not. So right now I'm trying to get the board up without straining anything too much. And I don't want this aluminum part to come with it. And the thing about this is it plugs in the motherboard plugs into the power circuit underneath right here. So at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna flip it over. Oop. See, and now my screw wants to come out. So I'll take my screw out. I'm gonna leave this in the same orientation, but I'm gonna set it up here make sure it doesn't get scuffed up in any way. Then I'm going to look at this, and it looks like right here is where my optical drive connects. So right here is where this guy is going to be soldered onto. So it says this side up on this quick solder cable, which makes me think it goes like this. And some of these points on here, like, I don't know if you can really see it, but there's a couple. Let's see if I can get it where you guys can kind of see it. So what you do, let's see, I'll get this, try to get this up close. So what you try to do here is these ones on the far left and right, and down here on each side, they're kind of like anchors. So typically what you want to do is you want to just get these anchors connected first, and get a few of these little spots, and then you just want to kind of go out from there. Like everything, when I sit here and look at this now, it's a little smaller than I anticipated. So what I think I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put something on here. Like, I'm going to take this SP-SB2 and I'm just going to lay it there so that it kind of holds it while I solder. So I'm going to take some of my no clean flux and I'm just going to dip it, or just kind of pour a little bit all over everything, trying not to get it all over my SP-SB2. And that's going to kind of help it. I can already tell that that's kind of helping adhere it to the board. So now I'm going to take some solder and I'm going to get myself a length of it and cut it with my snips here. And then what you want to do is you want to not use too much, because I can tell you right now, this thing will be the biggest pain ever if you have to desolder it. So I'm going to start with just the upper right hand corner, and I'm going to try to put a nice little dollop on there. And that was perfect. So now I'm going to do one of these big anchors. And you don't want your iron to linger too long. And that looks good. See, the tough thing about this is they're so close together. So now I'm going to try to do another anchor over here, just to get this guy really. Okay, so at this point I'm going to move my SP-SB2 away. I'm going to try to just flow this guy. So that's a nice ball. So right now I have two nice anchors and then one of the corners. So I'm going to try to do another corner. So that one's done. So now these ones in between are going to be the tough ones. It's going to be tough to do all these without bridging them. And I think the secret to this is going to be just keeping a little bit of solder on my iron and just kind of tapping them in there, letting them kind of just flow, and then moving on. And I can kind of see them. Tough thing to judge is when you have enough solder. Okay, so to my eye, the top row's done. So now I need to do the middle row, and this is where it's going to get hard. Not really sure what the best way is, because the tip on my iron isn't that I was able to get in there. Maybe it will work. So I'm just keeping a small amount on my iron. Just kind of taking my time, making sure I don't bridge anything. And I'm kind of doing a real vertical movement. Just coming in directly from on top of the pins. Because I don't want to bridge anything. Because desoldering this thing, I don't have a desoldering gun. So if I get to a point where I have to desolder this thing, I'm probably just going to end up cutting it off and going back to a Wasp Custom. But I'd like to pull off this mod. And if you don't have flux, don't even try this. I can tell you that right now. This is MG Chemical No Clean Flux. It's recommended by Voltar and some other people who do a lot of this. Oh, that one was kind of sketchy. I put a lot on that one. Okay, and if you bridge them like I just did, don't freak out. What I'm going to try to do... Gosh, I was just doing too good. I'm going to stick my iron right in the middle here. And I'm going to try to suck it up. I'm going to try to just kind of distribute this. See, and that's kind of the thing too. If you let it flow, it may just naturally go back to the points. Okay, I think I saved that one. I need to get a better look here. Okay, so I'm definitely bridging 4 of them. So I'm going to try to add just a little more and go very vertical. So at this point, see, that's the kind of the problem with this. It takes one little screw up. But you don't want to freak out. You want to just keep flowing the solder. See, I just fixed one. Oop. See, and I maybe want to get some of this off my iron. I'm going to pour some more flux in here. I'm just trying to kind of heat it up. To get it to go back to its pins. See, I just kind of have this big mess over here. So, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to handle it. I'm trying to just kind of spread it out. I don't know if I should try to get if I should try to take like a wire and get some of it out of there. Let's see here. I know I've got some wire in here, some extra wire. I also have some capacitors. I think I'm going to try to use some capacitor legs to get this off of here. I'm going to move my garbage over here. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is to just reduce the amount of solder here. I'm going to take a capacitor leg and stick it in there. And then try to just get it kind of coated, get it to kind of steal some of it. I'm gonna try upping my heat a little bit. Oh, maybe that's the highest it goes. You know, I might be out of luck here. Oh man. What can I do? What can I do? Maybe I could put a little bit of flux on the leg. So at this point, I'm shorting all these pins. I just want to get some of this out of here. See, and it seems like when I just put my iron on one, it doesn't heat it up enough to melt the stuff around it. God, and they're so small I have a hard time even seeing which is which. And I don't really know if I should continue with this big wad of junk on here. You know, or maybe I should put more. Try this. Oh, I need my real little one now. Okay guys, so I got a little frustrated, so I shut off the video for a little bit, but I ultimately believe I got it. So what I ended up doing was just I added a bunch of solder to the section that was all bridged. Then I used my solder sucker to get it up. And then I started just applying my iron and reducing the amount of solder on my iron until eventually I got them to where they don't appear to be bridged. But they're so small that I don't really know if I can really visually tell. But I don't think they're bridged. So at this point, I'm gonna try to keep going. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Yeah, even when I look at one angle, it looks like they are, and then when I look at another one, it's like it looks like they aren't. So I'm gonna keep going. Gonna hope for the best, and if it doesn't work, then I'll have to come back to this. So now I want to look and see what's going on with this cable then. So this cable looks like it's going to come up right there. So this cable is going to come up right where a screw hole is. So I think what people have been doing is breaking off. Let's see if this will come up. Oh, I gotta do those 2 screws to get this up. So I do the 2 screws in the middle. Just want to make sure that I'm recording here. Yep. So I'm going to do the 2 screws in the middle. I don't want to lose track of them. Then I'm going to break off this piece. And all these screws are the same, so it's not a huge deal where you put them. So the best way to break this off is going to be to just take a pliers and move it back and forth until it breaks. The more of a range of motion you get on it, the more effective this will be. Yeah, so there we go. You also want to make sure that this isn't something that's going to cut your ribbon cable. So like what I'm going to do is just kind of bend it down so that the ribbon cable is kind of looping around it. I really don't want it cutting that ribbon cable after I went through all that soldering fun. So far this has been a little harder than I thought it would be. But hey, that's why I'm making the video, to show you guys. Whether this is something you want to do yourself or if you want to get a modder to do it. Okay, so I've rounded that off, so that's nice. That's not gonna dig into the cable or anything. And then what they've also been doing is they've been cutting this post. So I'm gonna cut this post down because at this point I feel like I've got a pretty good shot of pulling this off. So I cut that post, and the GameCube uses so many screws that I wouldn't be too worried about using one less. So this goes like this. So now, is that right? Yep, that's right. So I'm going to put those 2 screws back in here to hold this guy down. Okay. And what stinks about this is I'm pretty much going to end up putting the whole thing together before I test it. So hopefully these solder joints are good, which I think they look good. You know, and I used flux, so they shouldn't be bridged. They should have flowed well. So I'm just gonna do this assuming that my solder work is good. So now you see this cable right here. It's still kind of getting pushed up. I don't know if I like that. I think I need to cut this some more. So I'm going to take these screws back out. I don't want to stress that cable at all. And that's why he has the, well, there's a couple of reasons that he did those kind of supporting solder joints, or those anchor solder joints. One of the reasons is to get around this. You know, one of the reasons is to be resilient to having pressure here, but the other reason is to stabilize it when you're soldering, so your solder joints don't get off. So I'm gonna bend this now until it breaks. Oh, I don't want to mess up this one though. So I'm just going to bend it back and forth, back and forth. And where you get the head of your pliers is kind of where the point's going to be. So if I go like this, and then back and forth, eventually it's going to get brittle and snap. See, and that's a beautiful one because this is sloped down and the cable is going to be above it, sloping up, so there's nothing to hurt the cable. So let's put this back in here again. Put my 2 screws back again. This is turning into quite the process. Okay, so there's 1, 2, and I'm just gonna assume that my soldering's good and everything's gonna be right the first time. So I'm gonna try to do a real good job of putting it back together. Push this guy down. Yep. See, and now this cable's just hanging out. Not a big deal. Now I'm gonna do my heat sink. My 6 screws for the heat sink. Okay, that one's in there, and you want to take your time with them. And you'll see that I'm hand tightening them. I'm doing that so that I don't strip any of these or force anything if anything doesn't line up. You just want to take your time and do it right. You know, okay, I was just making sure that there's a gap underneath my soldering so I'm not shorting them all against the aluminum frame underneath it or something. That'd be stupid. Just to make sure I don't have to put like a piece of electrical tape or something on there. You know, the only thing that would have made this like better is if you'd harvest a connector like the Wasp Custom does, so that it'd just be plug and play. But I understand why he didn't do it. So that'd probably be a lot more difficult to manufacture. And then you're either sacrificing optical drives or you just have to find that many that have bad optical drives, which I don't think is very difficult because in my experience most of the optical drives on GameCubes fail pretty quickly. So I'm gonna pull this gaff tape off here because this is actually used for mounting the board itself. So the board goes like that. and they gave me some screws with the GC Loader kit. So let's figure out how these go here. So it looks like I have some washers. So the washers definitely go on the top of it. I wonder, so it definitely goes like that. I bet so let's say I do a washer and then a bolt, and then does this guy, how many of these did they give me? They gave me 5. So there's 3. Kind of feel like I might be one short. Oh, I've got one sitting right here. Okay, so I get what I'm supposed to do. So I take the washer at the top to not stress the board, put the screw through, then I fix one of these spacers to keep it from being on top of the chassis. And I do that for the third one as well. And then what I'll do is on the underside, I'll use these spacers to affix it on the underside as well. And another thing that I should say is at laserbear.net, he's made a 3D printed mount where if you don't like the position of where GC Loader mounts the SD card inside, because this is going to be kind of hard to get to, because it's going to be like this, and then you're going to be kind of reaching in and popping it out. At laserbear.net, they've actually made a 3D print where it fills up the place where the CD-ROM drive would be with black, and then there's SD card mount or extender that moves it up there. So I've got a couple of those on order because I'm kind of curious, because I wanted to do it to this one, and then I also want to do it to my other GameCube that has a Wasp Custom. So right now I'm just hand tightening these spacers on the underside. Okay, so I got this on here. Now I'm going to put it down on the board, and then I've got one screw over here that I'm no longer using. I'm going to take this and I'm just going to route this up, and this should pop upwards, I believe. Or is it, let's see here. Or is it outwards and upwards? I think it should just pop up. Yep, there we go. Then I take this and I just line it up. Then I pop it down. And that looks like it's even. So there's my quick solder cable for my GC Loader. Then at this point, I'm just going to put an SD card in here. And then I want to do a bunch of these screws. So I'm going to go around. So this is not the orientation I was. This is the orientation I was. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to skip this one, and I'm going to do all these other screws. And I'm just going to put this guy back together. So far, so good. Hopefully my soldering was good enough. It looked good. I mean, you really just got to take your patience, or take your patience with that. I'd say it's a little more difficult than people act like it is. So if you're an absolute novice, I'd maybe have this done by someone else. But I was able to pull it off, so can't be the hardest thing in the world. So this, I'm going to do these 3 screws here. I'm not sure what this button is. I don't know if that's a lid switch button for like multi-disc games. That would be my guess. So let me finish putting these in. Oh. Not forcing anything, just hand tightening. And the ones in the back, I'm trying to remember, there's something special. I think I just do the ones in the back, but these 2 I don't do until I put the power, or the power switch and the fan back on. I'm pretty excited for this. GameCube's like one of my favorite systems, so. And I think I pulled the mod off, so that's pretty cool. That makes this pretty cheap, you know, 80 bucks and do it yourself. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that. If this works, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that Wasp Custom. I don't know if I'm gonna sell it or if I'm just gonna hold on to it. I'm not sure if they're really gonna sell for much now that this is out, since this is only 80 bucks. I don't know, maybe people would still like it just because it's so plug and play. I mean, I still think it's pretty cool because it's so plug and play. So let's put this guy back on here. I think I'm gonna have to change what's on this SD card though. I think I have to name Swiss boot.doll in order to make this work. I don't know if I have to do anything else. I think there might be a new firmware already as well. Unless mine came with the newest. I'm not sure. So, let's see. These go outward. Be really sweet if I pull this off on my first try, because I don't want to take this thing apart again. Okay. I'm just doing this whole thing assuming I did it right. If it works, I'm going to be pretty proud of it because I feel like I did a really good job. Okay, so now I'm going to put the back on it and the front on it. There's the back. Now for the front. Front has this little ribbon cable. I like to put that in. I like to put this little lip in there and then do the ribbon cable. Doing this is going to reset your system clock. So if you care about it, go in and set it again after you do this, because you just reconnected the battery to the motherboard. Okay, and there's my mod right there. Little cables in there, perfect. And then the next part is when you put the top back on, you want to make sure that you're not doing anything bad to that ribbon. So I'm just gonna push in with my finger right here as I put it on. Make sure it doesn't get snagged. And then that's on there, perfect. Then I've got my, custom jewel on here from Rocker Gaming. He has an Etsy store where he does different GameCube jewels, if you're interested in that. Then I'm going to take this guy. It's the broadband adapter. Put my SPS2 in here. This side face inside. I don't have a memory card in there, or I don't have an SD card in there right now. And then I'm going to put my screws in here. And the bottom of this guy is actually Japan, because I actually took the shell from a brand new Japanese GameCube and have a US motherboard in here. Because I wanted to get a GameCube, an Indigo GameCube that was in perfect condition. So I bought a brand new Japanese one because it's a lot cheaper than an American one. But then I wanted the motherboard to be American because you can't manage your saves and stuff from a Japanese one. And some of the menus are inaccessible or unusable. So now, probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to go cut to having this hooked up to my TV. Okay, so I hooked it up and it did not work. I was getting this crazy error that said like there's been a problem with your GameCube, system error occurred. So I started driving myself crazy. I tried seeing what it did with and without the GC loader, seeing what it did if I removed the GC loader and at this point put the Wasp Custom back in. Saw what it did if I had no drive connected, and ultimately I ended up going back to my soldering, and I'm not sure what was bridged, but I went back through all my joints and I ended up bridging some other stuff and then fixing the other stuff I bridged, and this and that. And now I've actually connected it to a TV and had it work. So at this point, I'm going to reassemble the system, which you're probably getting tired of seeing me do, but I'm trying to kind of convey how difficult this is or isn't. And I actually went back to Citrus 3000's video on installing this because I was kind of wondering, like with the Wasp Custom, there was some jumpers for which region of system you have, and I couldn't find any. I was wondering if maybe he like flips a jumper on the GC loader to like say, hey, you're Japanese, or hey, you're PAL, or hey, you're US. And he didn't do that, so that wasn't my problem. Because I know if you have like a region mismatch, you'll get that system error occurred message. But ultimately, I went back to my soldering. I also figured out how to set up my SD card. So what I did for the SD card was, I'm still using just a 64 gig because I don't have a bigger one laying around. But what I did with the SD card was I went out to the nightly builds of Swiss and I downloaded the newest ISO version, and then I renamed the ISO boot.iso and placed it on the root of the SD card so that when you fire up the system, GC Loader will automatically load up Swiss. And for those of you who don't know, Swiss is an operating system made mainly by EmuKid that allows you to get a menu where you can select different games off of your optical drive emulator or an SDGecko, and it allows you to do a lot of things as far as manipulating the video settings in the game and whatnot. So now that this has worked, I'm going to put it back together and hope that it continues to work. And then the other thing that I did was I put 1080 Avalanche on this SD card because I know that that is an audio streaming title. Another thing that I did was I put the newest firmware. There's a firmware update file on Dan's shop that you can download for GC Loader, and I'm going to try showing you guys the process of flashing it, assuming that mine didn't already come with the newest version, because mine just showed up in the mail today, so maybe it already has the newest firmware. But so far this install has taken me about 3 hours, and it was kind of funny watching his video, and he says how easy it is. And I think one of my main problems is I don't have a soldering iron with a really fine tip. If you had a soldering iron with a finer tip, maybe it would have been a lot easier. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm just not as good at this stuff as I think, or if this is harder than they give it credit for. I don't know. But this has been some work to get this going. And hopefully this will be the last time that I'm putting this system back together. It did boot up and it worked, so. And I'm definitely no stranger to the GameCube or doing this. Okay. I think my soldering joints were just bridging. And I'm not really sure how you can tell which ones are bridging, because I did a continuity test across different pins and tons of them are connected, so I think that's just the way it is. So I don't know that you can really take a multimeter and figure out which ones are bridged. I think you just kind of gotta. I also tried taking, another trick I tried to do is I tried taking my iPad and just taking a photo, because I don't have a magnifying glass, and then zooming in on the photo, and that I think that kind of gave me an idea of which ones might be bridged. I saw a couple that looked kind of suspect that I wasn't thinking before. And once again here, I'm going to push on that cable as I slide this down. And hopefully with those anchors, with those anchor points on the cable, none of my solder points are affected, you know, and hopefully I've soldered them well enough to where a little jostling isn't going to do anything. I would hope that I did. So I'm going to put this guy back together. This is becoming a pretty long video. Hopefully it'll end with a working GameCube. So I really don't want to scrap this motherboard in this GameCube, or pay a professional modder to fix it. If you do need a modder, I would look at a Mobius Strip Tech. I've had him do work for me in the past, and he's pretty awesome. He's done like a DC HDMI for me before. He's done a couple of them for me. He's done a Wii Dual for me. So I would definitely go to him if he's not too busy and you need someone to install this. Also, like I said before, I have the 3D printed mount in the mail, so that'll sit right in here, and then the SD card will be right here instead of down here. So I'm gonna go hook this up and hopefully it works, and then I'll show you guys what it can do. Okay, so I'm gonna power up GameCube. And it's doing the boot up screen just like it should. And then you can see up here, GC Loader. And I'm in the newest revision of Swiss because I have the Swiss ISO named boot.iso right here. And then I also have this GC Loader firmware upgrade, and I'm not sure how I can tell what version I'm on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run that firmware update and see what it does. GC ODE firmware update, checking version number, detected version 10 beta. Press A to start update process. So right now it should be flashing the newest firmware onto my GC Loader. So now it's saying turn it off and turn it back on. So this is pretty awesome that I managed to pull this off. Boots back in. Doesn't really tell me anywhere what version of the firmware it's on. I wonder if I try to run the firmware again. Oh, it does it again. Well, that's not real cool. So maybe I was already on 10. Another thing that's pretty cool about GC Loader, if you want to get into the GameCube's menu, I think you can just hold A when you turn it on. Yeah, and it'll take you to this. So I can go to calendar. See, and the calendar's wrong. It is actually 21:30, or no, 21:05. Finish, and I can go up here, Boot Swiss by EmuKid. Press start. And now I'm gonna try an audio streaming game, 1080 Avalanche. Audio streaming, yes. Wax your board. This is the sickest ride ever. Boot. See, I don't want. I'm gonna hold down B. Yep, because I want progressive scan. So this is a game that never worked on the Wasp. It's been forever since I played this game. I remember not liking it at all, but I loved 1080 on Nintendo 64. That's funny. This game is in this song is in SSX Tricky 3. I don't know if this game's super easy or if I'm doing pretty good, I think. If it's just too easy to do tricks or what. I'm using a GC Video X, I'm using a beta version of GC Video X, which was HDMI adapter by Badass Consoles. So this is pretty awesome. So I'll just pause it here. So I guess my final thoughts would be, if you're looking at, you know, the best solution for the GameCube, definitely you want a GC loader. It was a lot more difficult to install than I thought it would be. It's very fine soldering, very small soldering. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, I'd reach out to a modder like Mobius Strip Tech. But I'm definitely happy that I did it and that I pulled it off, and I'm excited to play some of these games like 1080 that I haven't been able to play with an optical drive emulator. So this is Super Retrocade, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's long, it's kind of aggravating, but it all worked out in the end, so thanks for watching.